Hey everybody! The purpose of this video is to get you some solutions to this little homework on the ruler. Okay. So first question here is, what is the smallest increment marked on this ruler? Okay, so let's take a look at this. There was a lot of confusion about the smallest increment marked. Now, if you look up at the ruler, notice there's only one side with delineations for measurement. Notice over here, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so we can see it better. Okay, so notice over here the word inch. So that means we're measuring in inches. So each of these large numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those are inches, full inches. So those clearly aren't the smallest increment. The smallest increments are the ones in between. So now what you have to do is kind of reverse engineer. Let's zoom in some more. Let's zoom in some more. Okay, here we go. Come in, come in. Whoops, come in, come in. All right, so let's just look between 1 and 2. That's a full inch. This right here would be half an inch. I do reference that down here. We'll get to that in a second. So this would be half of an inch because it's halfway between 1 and 2. All right. Then we have halfway between 1 and 1.5, which would be half of an inch. Now, we did talk about that in class. I'm going to go ahead and write some stuff down here. Okay, there's your half. Then we've got to take half of a half. So now you have to think back to what that means. If you already have half, when you're thinking about the visual of what a half looks like half a circle, for example, and then you take that half of the circle and cut it in half. We talked about this in class quite a bit. That is going to be equal to, let me toggle this a little quick, a little bit ghetto. That's going to be a quarter. Half of a half is a quarter. If you're not following why a half of a half is a quarter, go back and look at your lab from last week when we did repeated halvings of the circle. Okay, so this right here is a quarter inch from the 1. That right there is 1/4 of an inch. Following this kind of pattern, this distance would be half of that. So that would be half of a half of a half. Or half, you can actually do this if you want. You can do half. Oops. Half of a half of a half. And hopefully you're seeing where this is headed. That's going to be equal to 1/8. That's top field codes 8. All right, half of, and again, if you're not seeing why this is, make sure you go back and look at our lab from last week. We did a repeated number of these kind of broken up versions on the circle. So here we go. We got a half. This is a quarter. This is an eighth. And then that finally brings us down to this little tiny distance here, which is indeed the smallest increment. Each of these little tiny spaces here is this increment. That increment is halfway to an eighth. So that's a half of a half of a half of a half. And hopefully you're seeing the pattern here. Half of a half, oops, of a half of a half, which is going to be a 16th, 1/16. All right, let's toggle this, put a 16 where the 8 is supposed to be. All right, there we go. So hopefully you're seeing the pattern. Half of a half is 1/4, half of a half is 1/8, and so forth and so on and so forth and so on. And hopefully you're seeing the multiplication of the fractions. And this is a throwback from your previous math class, but half of a half is a quarter. So the smallest little increment there is 1/16 of an inch. Okay, 1/16 of an inch. Okay, so that was the first answer to the first question. All right, let's zoom in on one small part, which is kind of what I just did. I should have just gone down here, I guess. That would have made more sense. And I wanted you to kind of fill in the rest of these increments based on the fact that we are zoomed in from 0 to 1. All right, so I threw a few in here. So here's 0 inches, 1 inch. Here's a half. There's a quarter. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add, I'm going to do this kind of in a different place. I'm going to add it to Paint where I can actually add text. Let's see, can I go 200? Is that too large? I don't know if I zoom in correctly. Hang on, let's get this thing so you can actually see what the hell's going on. That's not bad. Okay, so since we know each of these is 1/16, so that distance right there is going to be 1/16 of an inch. And I'm going to go ahead and select that and drop it right. Well, I can put it right there, I guess. That's going to be a 16th right there. This right here is going to be 2/16. And some of you did write 2/16. But 2/16 is also equivalent to 1/8. And we've been doing that since day one in class. 1/8, 2/16. Let's make this transparent so we can drop it in. There we go. 1/8. So 1/16, 2/16, or 1/8. So 1/16, 2/16, 3/16 up here. 3/16 up here. There we go. 3/16. 4/16 here. But 4/16 reduces to 1/4. Again, something we've been doing in class for a while. 5/16. Yay us. It's already there. Keeping the pattern going. 1/16, 2/16, 3/16, 4/16, 5/16, 6/16, which is also known as 3/8. Okay, I think you see what's going on now. Don't want to paste, just want to copy. 3/8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/16, which cannot be reduced. So we're just going to write it as 7/16. Very good, very good, very good. 7/16. 8/16. 1/2. 1/2, right? 1/2, 8/16. That's the special one. And then we keep going. 9/16. Hopefully you're seeing the pattern. Every odd numbered numerator doesn't reduce. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. You know what? Knowing that, let's just add 11. And let's add 13. And let's add 15. We'll drop those in where we know they're going to go. We know 11/16 is going to be here. We know that 13/16 is going to be here, and we know that 15/16 is going to be here. Notice the location: 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15. Okay, so 10/16 will be here, but 10/16 can be reduced to 5/8. And just so you know, I don't mind if you don't reduce. It's just that when you actually use a ruler, they will reduce. And hopefully you're seeing a little sub pattern here: 1/8, 3/8, 5/8. Hopefully you're going to catch the next one's going to be 7/8. Very good. I don't know why I'm just very good at myself. And last but not least, 1/4, 2/4, or a half. And the last one's going to be 3/4, 3/4. There we go. Very nice. We drag that one over here. All right, and there's your ruler all filled in, and most of you had no problem with this. It's funny, most of you had no problem with this, but you failed to realize this was 1/16, which makes me think maybe I have to ask the question differently. Regardless, there you go. So that's the ruler completed. All right, beautiful, beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize this for a sec and go back to our homework. Now it's your turn to fill in the rest. We just did that. Okay. Oh, actually, look at that. Please note these are often given in simplified fractions. Good. You read that then. Okay. What would the smallest increments be on the ruler below? Now, at first look, you might look at this and go, this is exactly the same as the one above, but it's not. It's not. Look at the lines. If this is 1, this must be 0. Okay, I probably should have put a 0 there, but you can assume that that's 0 if this is 1, which makes this a half, which makes this a quarter, which makes this an eighth, which makes this a 16th. Uh-oh, you see what's going on now? I just added the lines between the 16ths. Now, I know it doesn't look that much different than what I blew up here, but that's because I zoomed in more. So now each of these is actually 1/32. 1/32, 2/32. So this entire distance here is 2/32, otherwise known as 1/16. 2/32, 1/16. 4/32, 1/8. 6/32, 3/16. 8/32, 1/4. Oops, I forgot to put a quarter there. Oh, sorry about that. We'll add it here in a second. So we're going to copy this puppy dog over. This is going to be a little bit easier in Paint, and I'm probably not even going to do the entire thing just because there's really no need to. So here's the ruler, and I said to go ahead and add them to the ruler above. I feel bad about not having the 1/4 there, so I'll add that there. Okay, beautiful. Add that right there as your 1/4. All right, 3/4, 1/2, 1/8. So this is exactly the same as your ruler above, which would have been nice to check your work with the above. And all we got to do now is add all these little goofy 30-seconds in here. So this one right here is going to be 1/32. I'll move that one over a touch, just a little bit to it. 2 30-seconds, otherwise known as 1/16. 3 30-seconds, otherwise known as 3 30-seconds, because you can't reduce that. 4 30-seconds is an eighth. And now you're starting to see, hopefully, the same pattern. Every odd numbered numerator cannot be reduced because 32 is a power of 2, which means you can't divide it by an odd number. Only divided by even numbers. 6 30-seconds, or 3/16. 7 30 seconds. You know what? I'm gonna add a couple here. 9 30 seconds. 11 30 seconds. They're not in the right place yet. I will move them in a second. 13 30 seconds. 15 30 seconds. Let's get a little crowded. Let's put those in. So 7 30 seconds. We'll go right before 8 30 seconds. Right about there. 9 30 seconds. 11 30 seconds. 13 30 seconds. 15 30 seconds. And we are up to a half. And I'm going to stop here because the video is 10 minutes, over 10 minutes long now, and I think you see what's going on. 17, 19, 21, 23, 25, 27, 29, 31 30 seconds. And when you add one more 30 second, it's 32 30 seconds, which reduces to 1. So I think we've gotten enough of the pattern established where you can kind of see where it runs from here. All right. So I hope that helped. And I put a little note about here. Yeah, we'll pick up more in class. We'll keep doing fractions, proportions, all the goodness, all the measurements, all the applied math. And we'll talk to you soon. See ya.